Sabah everybody and welcome back. Today we have the OnePlus 10 Pro finally launching in the international market. It was originally announced on the 10th of January and launched in China with ColorOS. We finally have it here with OxygenOS 12.1 in the Global Edition, more specifically the US variant of the Global Edition. This is TK and this is the OnePlus 10 Pro you haven't seen yet, because everything else you've been seeing was not meant for your market. So let's go ahead and talk about the international, or more specifically the US variant of the OnePlus 10 Pro. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified whenever we have new videos on the channel. Keep in mind the packaging that you're looking at right now obviously is a reviewer's package. If you are picking up the OnePlus 10 Pro, you're probably going to be picking it up by itself, and each case is sold separately, as well as the buds, the brand new edition of the buds. One thing to keep in mind though, that these two cases are definitely very nice. The first case that they sent me here is a sandstone material. Let's give it a second to focus, and you can see right now this is the traditional OnePlus sandstone that we were typically known, again all the way up to the first original OnePlus. Looks really nice, very much a solid case, but the case that I'm really interested about is this one, and it actually looks like there's like a little chip in here, a little camera module, as well as a little bit dial, manual, automatic, shutter priority, and aperture, and of course we have here HDR, so definitely more of a unique case. It is see-through on the side, so when you put in your device, it definitely feels, or it will look really nice. So this is one of those really nice things I really appreciate. As you know, wallpaper here, lock screen, I've always had that before. And of course, it just looks really nice, and you can see the color accents of your device. Now there are going to be two colors of this. There's the volcanic black, and of course, as we see here, the emerald forest. One thing I will say though, the fingerprints are definitely not existent here, as we used to have them back with the original OnePlus 9 Pro, and that's something to keep in mind. The material is definitely better, looks good, it feels really nice on the back, and it definitely has a very nice shimmer. No gradient color as we've had in the past, but definitely looks very nice. Now, one thing to talk about the charging capabilities that we have in here before we go too far. This is the US version of the charger. It's a 65-watt charger. Let's go ahead and bring this into focus. It's a 65-watt charger, Super VOOC, similar to what we saw last year with the 9 Pro. And what it does essentially is a USB-C to USB-C cable that's included, as we saw before. It also supports a 45-watt PD charger, so 65-watt Super VOOC with 45-watt PD in the US. The international market is going to receive a different charger. They're going to be receiving a USB-A to USB-C 80-watt charger. And from what I understand, the 80-watt charger and the 65-watt charger, although they sound like they have a much bigger difference, in charging time, it's literally within minutes, like 2 to 3 minutes. 34 minutes with the 65-watt and closer to about 30 to 31 minutes with the 80-watt. Something to keep in mind is, in the US, this is going to be the charger that we get. So although it is capable of supporting faster charging outside of the US, in the US, this is pretty much the configuration that we're looking at. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's also going to be the same in Japan, but no word from OnePlus on that one. At least right now, it's a 65 watt. Now, the wireless charging is still going to be 50 watt. That's going to be supported with the OnePlus charger. You do need to buy that separately. So those are the things that we want to keep in mind. And again, the battery that we have here is a little bit bigger. It's a 5,000 milliampere here, as opposed to the 45 that we had last year. But they charge roughly about the same, again, with the Super VOOC 65 watt charging brick that we have in the box. The main sensor is still a 48 megapixel wide sensor and a 50 megapixel ultra wide sensor with an 8 megapixel telephoto at about 3.3x zoom. The front-facing camera did receive a massive bump, and when I say massive, I basically mean 100% bump. So it went from a 16 megapixel, which was something that OnePlus has been carrying for many years, to a 32 megapixel camera on the front. So definitely a nice little improvement here. Now, as far as the actual display, we have a 6.7-inch display similar to the one we've had in the past. It's an AMOLED display with an LPTPO 2.0, so it's an upgrade to what we had last year. Still runs at 120 Hz refresh rate from we're on to 120, basically adaptive refresh rate that's running on here. We have an always-on display. One thing we'll notice right away if you have a chance to check it out, so if we look at the OnePlus 9 Pro and OnePlus 10 Pro, the fingerprint sensor is definitely a little bit raised. Hooray, because realistically, I did not like it having it being so low. This is much more of an natural position. Having to put it all the way in the center of the bottom was, although maybe it may have been functional at some point, I feel like this is the right spot for it to be there. We have a volume rocker on the left side, pretty much in there, and then of course antenna pins. On the right side, we have a power button. We have, of course, the slider that's still present in there, and the camera module that kind of just blends into the actual around the metal bezel that we have in here. The cameras on the back, as I mentioned to you guys before, 50, 48, and 8. And of course, we have the dual tone, basically the LED flash that we have in there. On the top, we have one of the microphones. We have an additional microphone that's present right there, that's center between the lenses. And of course, at the bottom, we have the third microphone. Last but not least is a single SIM card here supporting 5G in the US with a bottom firing speaker married to the top earpiece to provide us stereo speakers. We of course have obviously stereo speakers with Dolby support in here. The display, as I mentioned to you guys, is a QHD 120 Hz refresh rate, 32 megapixel sensor, front-facing camera. Now, this one is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and in the US, there's going to be basically, well, actually globally right now, OnePlus is only releasing one variant. It's going to be the 10 Pro, running 8 gigabytes of RAM with 128 gigs of internal storage. That's the only configuration that we have in here. So on the top, we have the shelf. This is something that we've seen before. If I swipe down, you'll notice I have Wi-Fi calling here on T-Mobile, so I am running this on T-Mobile, as well as the fact that I have voice over LTE and 5G, ultra capacity 5G. So if we go into here, speed test, let me show you real quick my last result, or the one that I was able to run it. I got 525 down, 87.1 up, and this is going to be available as well on T-Mobile. So there's an unlocked model and a T-Mobile variant as far as I know to this date. There may be additional versions coming out later on, but you should be able to basically just at least figure out that there's at least these two models that are available right now. The battery, as I mentioned, 5,000 milliampere. It's going to be charged up with the 65 watt charger in the US, 80 watt charger internationally, as well as the fact that it charges with the 50 watt charger that if you're using the OnePlus charger, and that's specifically the one that was released last year with the OnePlus 9 Pro. So that's pretty much something that you can carry over there. But otherwise, the experience is very similar. This one comes out of the box with Android 12.0 with OxygenOS 12.1, which is what we have here already running on the OnePlus 9 Pro. So if you're running the 9 Pro, you're pretty much covered as far as the latest version of it. But there are some unique features that are built in here, and we're going to go over them, specifically what makes this device a little bit more special. Now, this is running the second generation Hasselblad camera, directly supported in collaboration with Hasselblad. So you'll notice here the Pro mode is monikered as H, which is basically put in there from Hasselblad. We also have a few additional modes that were added in here under the filter settings. So if you jump into the filter settings, we have Radiance, we have Serenity, and I guess Emerald here. Those are the three included filters that are in the device based specifically because of the collaboration, as well as the fact that if you jump into the front-facing camera, you have also similar experiences with those three different filters that you have. As far as the actual overall performance, this is again running the latest and greatest SoC, the 8 Gen 1. And let's go ahead and jump in real quick into some GeekBench. Not that this is going to be an exact representation, but with performance mode on, 1238 single core, 3191 multi-core. And if we jump into the compute, 6058. Again, this is the performance mode turned on. This is the mode that you have to go all the way in, down into the settings, into the battery section. And under battery, go into advanced settings. And from advanced settings, you just have to turn on high performance mode. Now, high performance mode is essentially a non-throttled version or a non-throttled experience built into the system. By default, this is not turned on. And for you to get the full potential, you do need to turn it on. Although realistically, the 8 Gen 1 is so powerful, realistically, I don't think we really need to turn that on. But if you ever want that, just that little bit extra performance, optimization, you have the ability of doing that. Of course, out of the box, it comes installed with all the OnePlus applications, weather, settings. We have obviously the OnePlus Clone or the clone phone that enables us to transfer our data from our old phones to the new one. So definitely very nice. Amazon Music, obviously, we have Netflix. We have obviously installed some social media. I did install a few games in here. Undead Horde, of course, Call of Duty, New State from Pubg, as well as I installed Wild Rift here as just to be able to test out the system. And we'll definitely talk about gaming performance. But other than that, of course, let's go ahead and talk cameras. Of course, everything that we've seen in the past, we have night mode. Video mode is definitely very nice. We have the ability of shooting at 4K, 8K, 1080p, and 720. Now, the 4K has a nice little option here, as we've seen before, 4K 30, 4K 60, and 4K 120. Although, these modes are only going to be available specifically in the main sensor in the app itself, and we'll definitely talk about that a little bit more. Switching over to the front-facing sensor, although we did go up to 32 megabytes on the sensor size, unfortunately we're still capped at 1080p, but we do have 1080p stabilized footage if we want to be able to jump into that. Of course, and we have additional modes in here. Go back in here. We have photo, portrait, of course, under more, you have the ability of jumping in. We have movie, panorama, pro, slow motion, time lapse, long exposure, tilt shift, 150, which is definitely one of the new modes we talked about. So the camera itself, the ultra wide, is definitely very nice. There's now an additional mode called 150 degree angle, which gives you a little even bigger view, and we're definitely going to take a look at a few pictures of there. But then there's also the fisheye display here, which gives you the ability of kind of doing a nice little unique perspective type of images, and of course we'll share some of those as well. But all in all, the experience is very much well-rounded, and of course we have the expand mode that gives us the ability of utilizing some of the Hasselblad technologies in here. Now by definition, by default, it's turned on with color. You can turn that off, and of course you can check some images there. But let's not waste any time. Let me share with you guys real quick front-facing video as well as back-facing sensor video from the OnePlus 10 Pro. Starting off with a front-facing camera on the brand new OnePlus 10 Pro, 1080p 30 frames per second is going to be the maximum we can record. We are able to obviously record much more and more flexible capabilities on the back-facing sensors, but that at front, 1080p is going to be the maximum. But let's go ahead and switch over to the main sensor on the back. Switching it over to the main sensor on the back. Now, although we have technically a triple camera setup and we have a very large megapixel ultra wide, 4K 30 is going to be the more flexible option if we want to be able to switch between those two. So if you want to shoot with the ultra wide and the main sensor, 4K 30 is going to be the best. If we want to be able to shoot at 4K 60, that's going to be basically focused on the main sensor with a 2x digital crop. So you're able to actually do a 2x digital crop, not actually using the telephoto lens that we have in here. Now, the 8K capabilities is also limited to the primary sensor. That's something to keep in mind, and that's going to be recording at 30 frames per second. So 8K 30, 4K 60, 4K 30, 4K 120, and that's going to be one of the very unique capabilities that we have, again, on the OnePlus 10 Pro. And of course 720 and so on. But this should be a good example of what the audio and video look like on the main sensor on the back at 4K 60 frames per second. As you saw in the video there, it looks really good. We're going to jump in right now real quick to his audio test. You have the volume sitting at 100%. This is Jumbo by NCS Release, and of course this is just basically Alex Crendo's Jumbo song. It's going to be playing obviously with the stereo speakers, so let's go ahead and listen.
Jack it up.
Sounds really good, has a nice amount of bass, and of course no distortion at the high level. One thing I will say though, it does sound like it's coming out louder from the right side than it is from the top. So for the most part, when you're listening to it or using the content like this, you're definitely going to get a very nice sound if it's bouncing off a surface. If you're holding it in your hand, this is definitely going to be the best experience you can get there. So of course, all of these experiences are definitely going to be nice, translating into video calls, anytime you're using the speakers for audio. So watching content, playing movies, or even doing video calls using the front-facing camera. Something I'm definitely very happy is the fact that we did get a chance now to have a much better sensor than what we've had in the past. My hope is that at some point, hopefully we'll see some type of 4K resolution video as opposed to just having 1080, or at least maybe even a 1080-60 as opposed to just straight up 1080 at this point. And as far as music and listening to audio here, now for the most part, you probably are aware that they did release a new color of the OnePlus Buds Pro, and this is going to be coming out. That's the Buds Silver, coming out about the same price as the original one, but available starting actually today, if I'm not mistaken. Overall, this is going to be basically the best experience. LHDC support, which is technically a little bit better than what we've seen with basically LDAC, is supported out of the box with the latest version of Android 12.2, Android 12, OxygenOS 12.1. Pairing, connection, everything's pretty much going to be the easiest thing. You just connect them directly in there. You have access to them. You see them there. And now one thing I do like here is that the shelf that we have at the top, once you have them connected, is something that it basically becomes very easy. You're able to pair them, put them together, see the different configuration, update them, run Zen mode, run the configuration, the fit, everything that you need to do. And of course, I'll try to link for you guys a video I put out for the OnePlus Buds Pro that I put out not that long ago. It'll help you get a better understanding. But definitely one of the best buds on the market, and definitely are paired with one of the best devices to make it work to the full potential. They will work pretty much with any other device as well, but LHDC is only supported on a specific number of devices. Now, when it comes into gaming, we definitely have the game center, so we have, or the game system that we have here. So under My Games, you're able to basically scroll in, see the different apps. You're also able to jump in and see the free video recording, because I actually did get a chance to record a few videos here, and I'll share those with you guys in just a second. You can configure it, go in there, go into the settings tab, set up different option. 4D vibration, just to mention right now, is only supported under League of Legends Wild Rift, and it doesn't have any other application that is supported yet. Although in the picture it looks like it's PUBG, but I couldn't figure out why. But essentially, hopefully, as more games are available, we'll be able to check those out. You have game focus mode and different options in there as well. Once you launch the game, we'll go ahead and turn that on. Let me lower the volume. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a UI present at the top. Swiping down from the top gives us access to basically the system that we're able to configure. Let me bring that up for you guys. So we have performance mode, and of course you're able to configure that between high and standard. And my recommendation would be is to keep it at somewhere in the middle, because otherwise you're going to notice some temperature concerns that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And of course, we have focus mode. Of course, we have a notification as well, brightness level configuration. Let's go ahead and bring it back one more time. And then screen recorder, touch optimization, as well as system status, which is a very nice option that gets us the ability of seeing the frame rates, the GPU percentage usage, as well as the CPU percentage usage. And last but not least is the ability of running orientation log, editing the options that you have in there. And of course, information here as far as the temperatures. Right now we're running about 36°C, which is, again, the temperature that the device runs normally. It is cool to the touch. One thing to mention though, it does definitely have some temperature concerns, but let's talk about this. Let me go ahead and just do this. Let me share with you guys real quick some samples of gaming on the brand new OnePlus 10 Pro.
Enemy down! Target's in sight. Enemy contact! Enemy down! Join the horde.
As you saw in the videos, gaming is not going to be a problem here. This device has literally the latest and greatest specifications. Now, although we only have 8 gigs of RAM, I feel like 8 gigs is still more than enough to be able to get the best experience running on this device. You are able to do supplement some RAM from the internal storage, but the reality of the matter at the end of the day, gaming, there's not going to be a problem. We have LPDDR5 RAM, we have UFS 3.1 storage, so latest and fastest RAM and storage to give us the best experience on this. And of course, 120 Hz refresh rate display that has basically the LTPO 2.0 display that gives us the ability of having some of the best images on this. Now, the 8 Gen 1 is still technically a very hot processor. So my recommendation, and I'll say this right now, use this device with a case. Do not use it without a case, as the temperatures can definitely get pretty warm. And what I mean by this, when I was playing Undead Horde, I was trying to play it and see basically what was the best capabilities I was able to run. The system ran a little bit warmer. I was actually able to get about 45 degrees C. That's almost 115 Fahrenheit. So we're talking hot temperatures, and this is, again, a game that does technically push the system to its limit. I did this intentionally to see, am I able to get this device to get warm? We do have a cooling system. It definitely does the job right. But I feel like if you're not using a case, any kind of case to separate your fingers from the back of the phone, you're going to feel the heat. When I jumped over to play Call of Duty Mobile, this one actually did a little bit better. Maximum temperature I was able to get there was around 41, 42 C. So that definitely kept it more consistent. The frame rate was very consistent. Even on Undead Horde, it was somewhere around the 60 frames per second. I mean, it fluctuated a little bit, but it wasn't like dipping down and going back up. It was very level-headed as far as the experience, and I think it's also intended here with the new gaming engine that we have. This is something that OnePlus is trying to focus on, not necessarily giving you a stuttery experience or something that crashes and goes up a lot, but more of a steady experience on this, and of course more enjoyable since you're technically able to play it. So long story short, does this device get warm? Yes. Does it basically need to be managed better? Absolutely, and I'm thinking, you know, some software updates in the future could potentially help us out. There is another factor, of course, is that I was recording video as I was shooting this video on the game itself, so that could also be attributing to the temperatures. But at the end of the day, OnePlus is known for making sure that the device has a good balanced experience as well as balanced thermals. So again, this definitely needs a few more updates, and this is just day one of announcement. So please take this with with that type of experience at this point. So at the end of the day, who is this device made for? Is this meant for somebody that picked up the OnePlus 9 Pro, the 8 Pro, or even the 7 Pro? The reality is, based on the upgrades that we have here, obviously this is a very similar device to what we saw last year. A very incremental upgrade, although definitely some nice upgrades in there. So I really would recommend this for somebody maybe coming in from OnePlus 7 or OnePlus 6. Barely, I would say, around the OnePlus 8 Pro, especially if you have the Pro model. If you have the OnePlus 8, this is definitely going to be an interesting upgrade. Definitely some new unique features that you can definitely leverage there. The benefits that we get in here are obviously built on a standard OnePlus upgrade cycle. Every year we get a little bit better, and of course we add new features, we optimize, we get better, and I think this is no exception. It's definitely the best OnePlus 10 Pro we can get. Although I'm hoping to find more storage and RAM capability or options in the near future. So let's switch over to the cameras and we'll talk about the experience here. I took this device with me with the family over to the Huntington Library here in Pasadena. And you know, seriously, it doesn't disappoint. There is so many different capabilities, so many different options to be able to use, so many filters, lenses. The front-facing camera is definitely has received some nice upgrade from what we've seen in the past. But the biggest thing, obviously, for me is how is the color processing and how is the representation to true life? Like the images that I was taking, were they still giving us that, you know, the old OnePlus oversaturated images when we were taking them? The reality is they look pretty decent, and as you're seeing there, they look really nice. The additional couple of modes for the ultra wide, for the 150 degrees, as well as the fisheye, are nice and unique and artistic, but I didn't really find it that I was needing them too much. I still stuck for the most part with the standard ultra wide, which again is still a 50 megapixel camera, as well as of course using the main sensor, the 48. So the overall experience that we're getting here is a very well-rounded, improved experience with the second generation optimization. Now, the few different filters that they added in there are definitely welcomed. We still have the Pro Video option that we are able to also use to record video and control all the different aspects in there. We have 10-bit image processing, as well as super raw options here to be able to shoot content. And of course, if you want to do a little bit of touch up at the end. I will say though, if you are going to turn on the 10-bit image processing, it does generate a proprietary file system, and not necessarily proprietary to OnePlus, but it is essentially not easily used on other devices. I think even most PCs can't use them. Now there is a free converter that's present on the Microsoft Store that you're able to download it, so you can convert the HEIF file .HEIF files directly into a JPEG, and you can use them on your PC. Of course, if you're going to jump into RAW, you're going to be jumping into a DNG file. So at that point, you can pretty much get those files processed, and you can use like Photoshop to get them there. At the end of the day, I think the OnePlus 10 Pro is a great phone for what it offers. It's a little bit of a different experience. We're not seeing a OnePlus 10, a 10 Pro, and we're also not seeing different configurations as far as storage and RAM options. They did mention that hopefully in the future we may have some additional options, but currently this is the only version that's going to be available on the market. So this is something to keep in mind if you're looking to pick up the OnePlus 10 Pro. It's going to be available in 8, 128, and it is going to be available from many retailers, so it's not going to be limited strictly from OnePlus. If you stuck with me all the way to this end, I'll give you guys some information as far as the pre-order. It is going to start availability as far as the pre-order starting to the 31st of March 2022. If you pre-order it from OnePlus, you're able to pick up a OnePlus Buds Z2 for free. If you go directly with Amazon, you're going to be able to pick up an Amazon Echo Show 8 for free, and at that one actually about $130 worth. If you decide you want to pick it up directly from Best Buy, you're going to be able to pick up a $100 gift card directly from Best Buy. The last but not least is T-Mobile is going to carry a variant of this device, which will also be certified to be IP68, although the other variants are not. So the unlocked model that we get directly from OnePlus are not rated to be IP68, but the T-Mobile variant version of it will be. And that one will be sold, and pricing for that, I'll make sure to give you guys a link to T-Mobile site, so you can definitely find out more about that for that specific model if you want to get it directly from them. For me, I was using the unlocked model on T-Mobile, and again, I was getting almost 600 megabits down, which pretty much that means the mid-band, the new Sprint bands that they had in there. So it's definitely really nice, and it works very, very good. I did try an AT&T SIM card. It didn't give me even 5G. It was pretty much stuck to 4G LTE. And I think that's because of a certification thing. Don't hold me to that. That could change in the future. But anyways, long story short, the OnePlus 10 Pro is finally available. It is definitely available for us to check out. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think? And of course, what your thoughts are about having finally having the OnePlus 10 Pro in our markets. I'll see you in the next one.